So good afternoon. I was going to say good morning, but it's not. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. This is an SCW Spotlight session on supporting the capacity conundrum in change. So it's really just to give you a little bit of a flavour of SCW and our expertise in providing specialist support and workforce change programs, and where we might be able to support and assist in terms of the activity that's consuming a lot of the NHS at the moment in terms of change and managing that that balance, if you like. Just to let you know, this session is being recorded. We've got a number of speakers on today. So myself, I'm Elspeth Griffiths, I'm the Director of People. And then joining me, I have Maddie McPeak, Head of People at South Central West CSU, and David Benson, Organisational Development Programme Director as well. Both of them will be speaking after me with a little bit of insight in terms of the work that we do, but also some examples of activity that we've undertaken with clients and where you might be able to see if there's something that we might be able to help you with. So just some case studies in terms of that. We're expecting to talk for about 30 minutes and then 30 minutes of questions and answers and a bit of a conversation from people who are interested in either the work that we do or asking questions or exploring more detail. And you'll have seen on the front page there is a Slido poll that will be running in a few minutes after my introduction. David is going to be taking that forward. So if you have got a phone or you're on the Slido or you're on your PC, you can plug that number in and then we can start the poll in the next couple of slides. And if I haven't said already, this session is being recorded because we share this with other people who aren't able to join us on the day. And we circulate that around for people to look at a later date. So just to let you know if you aren't aware of that. So good afternoon, and I'm just going to give you a very brief introduction, and some of the colleagues who are on the call are from SCW and might know this already, but not all of you are. So so we're a commissioning support unit, and we're on this call to offer our help and our assistance and things that we get involved with, and whether that is of any interest to other partners to join us. So we're part of the NHS, so we're an NHS organisation, and we provide consultancy support and transformation services to health and care systems. We're non-funded, we're non-profit making, and we are, as I said, in the NHS. So we generate our income through selling our services broadly within the NHS, but we also do supply services within health and social care as well. But broadly, the majority of it is within the NHS. We were formed in 2013 with the disestablishment of PCTs and the creation of CCGs, now ICBs. So that's kind of where we came from in terms of that background. So what we offer is cost-effective HR and people solutions amongst many other services that we provide, but we're from the people team, so we're just talking about the people services and OD services that we provide. And we do that at national level, regional system and local level, and as I said, across health and social care. So for example, and some of the examples we might be touching on later is some case studies around scalable HR operations that we provide, including recruitment services and other services. Workforce insight and optimization. So we have a number of workforce specialists. We know they're quite a rare breed and can be quite difficult to recruit and appoint. So we do have a number of specialists in that area as well. We have a very wide HR support from a both strategic and operational level in terms of whether that's about people managers, people advisors, or strategic input for particular programs. We have organisational development and culture diagnostics programs and tools and expertise in that area as well. We also cover equality, diversity and inclusion and wellbeing as an offer. And we offer programme and project management support for particular pieces of work and pieces of change management or other projects that you might be running yourself, but maybe need some oversight and programme and project management as well. So those are some of the skills that we provide. And as I said, we're part of the NHS and we deliver primarily into the NHS. So that's an introduction into who we are. And I've said that we've got Maddie and David joining us as well. They're going to be taking you through some of the other information. So I think the next slide is over to you, David. So handing over to you because we're talking to you as customers. and potential customers about what your insights are about what's going on. So over to you, David. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Elspeth, and good afternoon, everybody. It's a genuine privilege to be here. Just so you know, my name's David Benson. I'm the OD Programme Director here at South, Central and West, and I'm very fortunate to support a team of roughly 15 OD professionals and specialists. So we predominantly work in the organisational development space, so working with culture, working with leadership and management programmes, etc. And at the heart of it is always this conundrum around change. So how do we best support you? We thought we'd start this by seeking some of your views and input. Actually, we know it's an incredibly busy time across the NHS at the moment, and so we just put together a brief Slido poll to find out what your emerging priorities are at the moment. So I'm hoping that when I flick onto this, you should find the opportunity to scan your QR code or pop in the slido.com into your mobile phone or into a web browser, and it should present you with the very first question, which is ranking your most pressing people issues right now. So is it employee wellbeing? Is it workforce change? Is it organizational culture and development? Is it workforce optimization? Or is it recruitment and scalable HR services? And it will ask you to rank them, so 1 through to 5. So if you want to take a moment just to do that, we're really keen to get your insight in terms of some of the things that you're tackling at the moment. Always fascinating watching the results come in terms of what's ahead in the rankings. So interesting at the moment, workforce optimization and employee wellbeing coming in at joint first at the moment. I'll give it a final 30 seconds just to complete. That's great. I'm going to assume that everybody's had the opportunity to pop their rankings in now. So interestingly, workforce optimization coming out slightly ahead of employee wellbeing. Really interesting. We did a presentation last week for the Strategic Workforce Conference where employee wellbeing was a bit further down the list. So it's interesting to see, depending on the groups of people that you bring together, just how far up the list employee wellbeing goes. And obviously, I think with things like the long-term workforce plan at the moment, things like workforce optimization really coming through as one of those priorities for all of you at the moment. Less so around things like recruitment and scalable HR services. So that's probably not top of mind at the moment, but maybe something you're considering for the future. Just moving on now, I'm interested to know, what do you find most difficult to resource and support when undertaking workforce change? So give me some thoughts in there. We ask you to pop some words in. What is it you find most difficult to resource and support when undertaking workforce change? Lots of people typing now. Right places for the right people. Absolutely. Manager and trade union engagement. That's really interesting. We shall speak about that in a moment. Something that can absorb an awful lot of time and resource. Having enough resource to carry out the change. Thank you. To the people and the expertise. give it 30 more seconds. Recognizing change is also an opportunity for people to expand. It's a really good comment. Thank you. That's great. Really useful insight. Thank you very much indeed. And what's lovely is some of those comments you've made in there already around people and expertise, having enough resource to carry out the change, manager and trade union engagement is absolutely some of the stuff that we'll be talking to you later on about in terms of how SCW's People Solutions team can help come alongside you and partner with you in some of those spaces. So thank you. When I move on, you should have a further opportunity to add some questions. So what we'll do is we'll hold on to those towards the end. If you want to be adding questions either into the chat or into the Slido poll as we go along, that would be absolutely fantastic. But for now, I'm just going to move straight into what our offer looks like. So over the last few months now, in response to the unprecedented change that we've been seeing going on across the health and social care landscape, we've been developing an offer that we can take out at regional, national, local level that provides some real insight in how SCW's People Solutions team can support you as you're stepping into some of those challenging conundrums around change. And I think none of this will be new for those of you on the call right now. We know that the NHS is experiencing some of the most severe pressures in its history. We've got the running cost allowance reductions that is hitting at lots of different levels across the NHS. We've got workforce growth plans. We've got the ambitions of the NHS long-term workforce plan, and we've got changing patient needs, all of which I think, hope you would agree, is leading to a really volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous landscape in which we're all operating at the moment. Many of you will have come across the phrase VUCA in the past. We use it an awful lot, particularly from an organisational development perspective, just to try and encapsulate what it looks like and feels like for people when they're stepping into this space. And I think it feeling volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous is a really good way of describing what's going on across the health and social care landscape at the moment. And for those of you that are leading change, managing change, stepping into some of that at the moment, I know it will be feeling like that for many of you at the moment. So at SCW and alongside our change offer, what we hope to do is turn that into vision, understanding, clarity and agility. Lots of the research around VUCA suggests that in order to combat some of this volatility and uncertainty, you really need to help leaders, managers, organisations and staff gain that vision and understanding of what the plan is, what's expected of them, and what the change agenda looks like for their organisation and themselves. And through that, bring clarity for them in terms of how they operate, what they need to step into, and moreover, how to be much more agile with the changing situation, with the increasing expectations that we all have upon us. Actually, agility is one of those things that's absolutely critical in terms of skill set. We've thought long and hard about our change offer and how we can support you. We did have a frightfully complex model that had about 20 different steps in it. But actually, what we boiled it down to was 3 really simple areas in which we can support. The first one is around planning and initiating change. So very much that early start of a change journey. How do we step in? How do we partner with you? How do we help you prepare for those changes that you're going through? We operate in the managing and supporting change space. So very much in the moment, how can we come along, partner with you to provide additional capacity and expertise to really help you manage and support the change process effectively? And then finally, at the other end of the bookshelf, the final bookend is embedding and evaluating change. So for us, that is all about, as you come to the end of that change journey, how do you make sure the changes that you've made are sticking? How do you make sure that you have the culture, the values, the ways of working that you started out expecting through the change process? How do you confirm that they are in place and that they're sticky and people understand them and are following them? And how do we evaluate change? So how do you make sure you got the return on investment you're expecting? How do you make sure that change program is delivered what it set out to do? So we operate and provide support in all of those spaces. And as Elspeth alluded to at the start as well, we provide full program management and project management support at every step of your journey for this. A little more insight in terms of what's contained within each of those 3 steps. So planning and initiating change, I think one of you already mentioned in the areas you find it difficult to resource and support, Preparing employees and trade unions for consultation, absolutely where we can step in, come alongside you, partner with you, and help prepare those communications, the engagement, the trade union discussions to really help you get ready for the best outcomes you possibly can. Our workforce team will work with you along to do workforce modelling and financial forecasting. We do stakeholder and impact analysis and mapping. We ensure legal compliance with your change agenda. And finally, we also look at organisational design and culture diagnostics, knowing that culture and the way that people are resilient and how they step into the change programmes can often be the deciding factor on how successful a change agenda is. So going in and doing some of that work up front to really understand how ready an organisation is for change, how the leaders and managers will step into that process is really important for us. And we set that at the start of the journey. In the second step, managing and supporting change, this is all about getting into the nuts and bolts of change, to be honest. This is all about the preparing and the launching and completing formal consultations and one-to-one support. We know that is resource hungry. We know it can absorb an awful lot of HR staff within your teams. So we can come in alongside you, partner with you on that, and provide that capacity to complete some of those processes. So even stepping in and providing support for one-to-one consultations. We do the work around job matching and job slotting. We do the equality impact assessments. And finally, we can also help you to manage the redeployment and redundancy process as well. So coming alongside your existing HR teams and not coming in over the top, but very much working alongside you just to add in additional capacity and expertise as and where required. And finally, the final step in the process, embedding and evaluating change. This we see as a really important step as well. So it's making sure that recruitment, resourcing and onboarding is done effectively into the new organisation, that you have competency frameworks and job descriptions that really reflect the new organisation that you're stepping into. We're able to monitor and report on the key people metrics that you probably set out at the start of the change journey. We can support you and help you in evaluating the change, both in terms of what the workforce looks like and the financials. We can do some of the real grunt work around updating and managing establishment headcount as well, and doing organograms and some of that really important stuff that always happens at the end of a change process, which is often forgotten about in terms of just making sure that organograms and your organisational headcount reflects what was set out at the start of the journey. And finally, we can help with supporting and managing disputes. So coming alongside you again as a really objective third party that can help support you through that difficult process. So those are some of the areas in which we can support and help. It is only a flavour. We can get involved in lots of other things along that change journey as well. So very much our offer to you is that full programme of project management. It's the initial diagnostics and workforce analysis. It's embedding the change, it's expertise and support at every step of that change journey. And we like to think that we can help you to prepare. We can help you design your change process. We can advise you by providing coaching and advice as you go through your programme. We can do it for you in terms of full programme management, but we'd much rather partner with you and work in a supportive way in that way. And finally, we can also provide assurance at the end of that change journey to make sure that things are done in the right way and you've got the outcomes you were expecting. So in terms of our workforce change offer, this is very much the summary. We recognise there is unprecedented levels of change going on across the health and social care landscape. We at People Solutions have got a really strong team of experts who can come in alongside you and provide that expertise and that best practice and that knowledge. And actually, by bringing the full strength of our combined People Solutions teams together, so that's workforce, OD, ED&I and wellbeing, and all of the HR strength that we have, we can really come in, work alongside you, and provide some real consistent application of best practice. I think it's important to note that because we are a CSU, we work with multiple organisations throughout the NHS, and therefore we're really able to guide and advise you on what is best practice, what are others doing at the moment, and we can give you that insight across systems and at a national level as well. So that's a bit of an insight in terms of what we offer and how we go about doing it. We're going to give you a few examples now in terms of what we're actually doing at the moment for clients. So Maddie, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Maddie McPeak, Head of People. It's really good to see so many of you join us here today. We've got 3 case studies to share with you this afternoon, just to offer some insights and to bring to life some of the work that we've recently delivered for NHS partner organisations. This first one was we were working with a South East Coast Ambulance Service. This was a new relationship for us, a new organisation, a new partner for us to work with and support. And their need, they were managing a rationalisation and relocation of their trust estate, which involved the relocation of a number of their existing sites and having an impact on staff bases. So this was a significant piece of work for them and had a real impact on their capacity levels within the organisation. So their requirements were for additional capacity to come in and work alongside their HR team to support that change programme. So in this case, we rapidly mobilised a delivery team that was in the client's geographical area, because it was really key for them that the support was face-to-face and delivered from their trust sites. So we were able to recruit a dedicated team quite quickly to go in and work alongside the client. It was a dedicated team of kind of qualified and professional experienced people professionals, and they work directly alongside the line managers to conduct the one-to-one meetings with staff who were affected by the proposed changes to relocate to new bases. Importantly, in this case, and picking up on some of the earlier comments from the Slido, our team presented as part of the client's HR team. That was really important culturally for the client, particularly in relation to their trade union relationships and managing that process through smoothly. So whilst they kind of presented as part of the client organisation, they obviously also had support from SCW on a broader scale. The other critical element to this support package was able to provide resource across 7 days of the week, which is not our kind of normal working pattern, but obviously they were a provider organisation with staff working shifts. So it was really important that we could offer and provide the support kind of 7 days a week, Monday to Sunday, from 9 o'clock in the morning right the way through till 10 o'clock in the evening. So we were able to provide that flexible level of resource so that the one-to-ones could happen during staff shifts to make it as smooth as possible for them. So our team went in and they were able to provide the advice and guidance in line with the client's policies and procedures and agenda for change. But they also engaged with the trade union representatives that were acting on behalf of their members. And that really helped in terms of obviously maintaining positive relationships and enabling the consultation to happen effectively. They also responded to FAQs and made sure that they were doing so in a way that was consistent with the organisation's messaging, tone and style, and completed and kind of one-to-one feedback forms. And I suppose the outcomes from this programme were enabling the client to kind of seamlessly deliver nearly 1,300 one-to-ones with staff, face-to-face and within their agreed timelines over 2 6-week blocks. It was a really ambitious programme, so putting that additional capacity into the client organisation meant that they could achieve the programme within the timescales and relocate to the site on time in line with their estate plans. And I think key to the delivery of this was that our team were able to really rapidly embed within the client organisation and establish trusted and effective working relationships with both the HR team themselves, working alongside them, and the line managers. And that was really critical to being able to mobilise this quickly and to deliver the support effectively. We've had really good feedback, and we've subsequently supported 2 further programmes with the same organisation with similar support. So we've got a really strong and kind of developing relationship with this organisation. I suppose this project was an example of us blending with the client's existing HR team, working alongside them and providing additional capacity. By comparison, the next case study that we were going to share with you in relation to a cheapy transfer was whilst working alongside the HR team, was going in and effectively leading and managing the overall HR process on behalf of the organisation for a cheapy transfer programme. So our delivery team went in, they led and managed the process to deliver a safe transfer of staff between organisations. And this programme was strategically important to the ICB because it would enable them to implement new ways of working, to create efficiencies, and have all of the staff that were chipping in under one leadership and management team, because they were coming from two different organisations. So importantly, the delivery team were experienced in managing TUPE processes and were able to ensure that the process met the legislative and also the practical elements of the transfer. So things like the ELI data, ensuring staff were paid on time upon transfer of records. And as David mentioned too earlier, this was all managed in accordance with programme methodology and governance to give that assurance in terms of the timeline in the process. And those things were all really important, but critically in this case, a priority was also ensuring that the process remained focused on the staff, so the staff that were transferring into this organisation, and making sure that their health and well-being was prioritised and taking steps to make the process as smooth and as seamless as possible. And I think of particular note to enable this, one of the ways that our team paid attention to that was in relation to the welcome and onboarding arrangements, which involved a number of bespoke elements, including interactive welcome materials, dedicated welcome meetings, induction sessions, and focusing really on integrating the staff into the organisation, kind of pre and post transfer, and starting that process very early on in the process, rather than it being kind of a quick scramble once the staff arrive to make them feel welcome. And so finally, I think the final example we'd like to share with you is work that we're currently doing with several customers across the NHS, which will resonate with some of you here today, in terms of both leading and supporting the implementation of voluntary redundancy schemes. I think importantly here, we'd note that we're connected with the NHS England regional and national teams, both in relation to the processes for seeking approval to run your local VR schemes, but also critically learning from the NHS England national process and adapting national materials to meet local requirements within your organisations. And our support packages here are ranging, depending on the customer we're working with, from leading the full process and incorporating all of the different elements as outlined on this slide, but also equally to supporting customers with individual components of this and working alongside their individual people teams. So we're flexing the support that we can offer according to need, and that's kind of a live example of work we're delivering at the moment, as is common, I think, across many organisations across the NHS currently. So I hope that's helpful, a bit of a whistle-stop tour and insight into some of our recent activity and our support with our partners.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed, Maddie. And I also wanted to blend into the examples as well, some of the work that we're doing to really help leaders, managers, staff in their own response and their own ways through change. So we've developed a series of change workshops that we're rolling out to a number of ICBs at the moment, which is all about an introduction to change. So that is getting managers and leaders really used to the change agenda. What does it look like? What does it feel like, most importantly? And what are some of the reactions they will typically see as they're leading teams and staff through a change process? We've got a separate half-day workshop specifically around leading and managing change. So focused on leaders, focused on managers, really helping them to understand their role in the change process, particularly when they are going through a change process themselves, but also expected to lead teams through change at the same time. And understanding some of the typical reactions they will see. So using things like the Kubler-Ross change curve, using the 4 rooms of change, using some of the Kotter's 8 principles around change management, really trying to bring to life for leaders and managers what that looks and feels like for them. What's their role? What's their responsibility? What do they need to look out for? And where are some of the bear traps along the way? So we help support managers and leaders with that. And then finally, we have another offer around managing self through change. So this is very much directed at individuals going through that change process, helping them to build resilience, helping them to understand their own reactions, emotional reactions to change, and really supporting them to consider the options, the opportunities that can present themselves through a change process. So as I said, we're rolling those out to some ICBs at the moment. They're being incredibly well received. I think it's some of the stuff that often is forgotten about as we go into workforce change. We're often very focused on the process and the steps and the Gantt chart that needs to be followed to get to where you need to get to. Actually, we see this as being critically important, really preparing the workforce and giving leaders and managers in particular the skills to support their staff, consider their staff, and respond to some of those kind of difficult and emotional responses to change is really important. And we see that as being a really good step in supporting organisations to get themselves match fit and ready for some of that change that might be coming their way. So that's some of the work we're doing in the OD space at the moment. So we did say at the start of this session that we would speak for about 30 minutes, and then we'd try and give as much time as we could to individual comments, thoughts, questions, insights that you might have. So it's very much over to you now, to be honest. We're really keen to hear from you. What's feeling complex at the moment? What gets in the way? What support would you welcome? What questions might you have for us in terms of our approach to change? So very much over to you as participants now. You can ask questions in the chat, you can come off mute and ask us directly, and I'll keep an eye on Slido as well and see if there's any questions come through there. But the floor is yours. What questions or insights might you have? Just having a quick scan through the chat now, and I noticed that Teresa, you made a comment earlier on about employee well-being. If you get employee well-being right, you get a good chance of achieving some of the other priorities that you might have, which is absolutely right. You know, it's all about the culture, it's all about the well-being. So I would strongly support that. See, there's a few questions being typed in the chat at the moment, so we'll give it a moment.
Thank you, David. And I think, thank you very much, David and Maddie, for the examples you gave. I think it's the other thing to bear in mind is we've given you some examples that are current at the moment, and some of them are quite big programs end to end in terms of some of the delivery mechanisms we talked about. But there's, you know, as with most programs, there's multiple ways of dealing with many changes, and if it's about capacity, it can be for bits of, or it can be for whole programs. So that's the other thing. So if anybody's interested, then we're very happy to have a conversation about what might be possible and what might be best. So I think there's a couple of questions in the chat now, David, so I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much indeed. So the first one comes in from our very own Lisa Hughes, which is how do you workforce plan in an ever-changing environment? And then we'll move to Teresa's question around the lessons learned since the Bob in-housing, and are these change readiness workshops new? So workforce plan in an ever-changing environment. Elspeth, Maddie, I'm going to come to you first. What response have you got for that?
Thanks, David. So I think it goes back to the VUCA piece, really. It's around trying to make sense out of things, and trying to make it as clear and agile as possible would be my view. You know, it's no good actually having a 10-year workforce plan that's static, because we know the world's not like that. We know things change quite rapidly. So having things that you're keeping a view on the external environment, and maybe some of the significant things that are driving those changes or making that environment change, and trying to stick as closely as possible as you can to your overarching vision, and understanding what's going on, and actually being agile about how you shift and change. But it is, you know, it's not an easy thing to do, is it? And we don't get it right all the time, and the NHS is a big monolith, and often struggles with that, particularly if you look at the supply and education of some of the professionals that we engage with in the NHS that take many years to develop and train. So actually keeping ahead of that curve is really, really difficult. So I'm not sure I can answer it, other than saying you just have to be agile and you have to keep an eye on what's going on. It's no good just sticking to your plan, because often things will be changing in the external environment that mean that it's not fit for purpose when you actually deliver it in 2 or 3 years' time. Maddie, have you got any reflections in terms of on top of that?
I guess my only reflections is that we are the only constant really now is that we know we're always operating in a period of change, and actually our workforce models and our planning will never be set for any particularly lengthy periods of time. So I think we always have to, whilst it's important to try and keep a line of sight to the future, I think we have to all become a bit more comfortable working in this kind of agile and ever-changing environment, and that's difficult. And I think that's where things like the change readiness workshops that David talked about earlier for staff are really key.
Thank you, Maddie, and that leads in beautifully to the next question from Teresa. So the first part is, have any lessons been learned from the Bob in-housing? And the second part was around, are these change readiness workshops new? I'll answer the first, but the second part around the change readiness workshops. They're relatively new. We've been rolling out something fairly similar now for the last 6 months or so. So I've been using them in various ICBs. What we tend to do is work alongside the teams within each organisation to really bespoke those. So rather than it being an off-the-shelf offer, we need to make sure it reflects the values of the organisation, the outcomes expected through change, any particular conundrums they may be facing into. So it's certainly something we continue to offer. They're not that new, to be honest, but in terms of our overall workforce change offer, it's something we've incorporated over the last couple of months. And I don't know whether Elspeth or Maddie, have you got any other thoughts around the lessons learned from Bob in-housing at all?
So go on, Elspeth, you go first.
No, you go, Maddie, go on.
No, I was just going to say that we always do a kind of debrief with our customers at the end of a programme and work through what went well, what didn't go so well, where we could improve working together. I think my reflections from my understanding of this programme were that obviously there's all of the practical and the legislative stuff, the process stuff that we need to do, and that happened. But actually there was a commitment from the outset to invest time and energy into putting staff at the centre of the process and making them feel welcome and embedded into the organisation. And there was really strong feedback from the staff in terms of how that made them feel connected and welcome and integrated into the organisation, certainly at the point of transfer. So I think probably my key takeaway from that was that time and effort and energy was worth it, and it was something certainly that we'd want to pay attention to in future kind of TUPE processes, because that bit can often get, I think, forgotten.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I think the commentary from the recipients of the change, also the kind of the organisational change, were very positive. I'm sure that's not the same for everyone involved in that change. I think different people have different perceptions and perspectives, but broadly speaking, it was quite positive, and well received, managed according to time cost, and all of those sorts of things. In terms of the detail, I know there are a number of areas that maybe we have looked at in a bit more detail to improve on, but I can't go into too much detail about that. But I think it's fair to say that we do a lessons learned, and we do a review at the end of it to say what went really well, what went maybe not quite as we planned, what do we do next time to make sure that doesn't happen again. So we do that, but broadly speaking, it was well received as a change management, as Maddie's referenced already. So thank you for the question though.
Right, moving on to Mark now. So Mark says that within Salisbury, we're more focused on strategic workforce planning and not so much on change programs regarding current teams. Do you have any case studies on this you could share? And also, we're operating in a very tight financial situation, so costs associated, are you able to indicate the sort of costs that might be involved? So Elspeth, if you don't mind, I'll go to you first on that one.
So Mark, it's always a $10 million question, isn't it? As in how much, and if I wanted X, Y, Z, how much would that be? And I'm afraid you're going to get a bit of a consultant's answer to that, which is that it kind of depends. So we do have fixed rates. We have day rates and consultancy rates that we can quote against for a program, and it depends how long and how big that program is. So if you wanted to have a conversation about what you're looking for, we might be able to give you some indicative costs, but I don't think it would be appropriate for me to do that on this call. And yes, there is information on some workforce planning programs that we have run, and we'd be delighted to have a conversation with you. And Lisa, who is actually on this call, is very happy to reach out and have a conversation with you as well, if that's something that would be of use. So we've got your details, so we'll stalk you and we'll get in touch with you just to have a probably more detailed conversation about it, Mark. because we recognise that that's something that is pressing for people. Yes, they want the resource, yes, they want the activity and the support, but cost is an issue, and you're not alone in that. All NHS organisations are constrained in one way or the other, and yeah, we will do what we can to make it appropriate for an envelope that you might have, and then we can talk about how much money we might have available and how much it might cost and what that might look like, and we can tweak it accordingly. So we are very flexible in terms of that, either in time of delivery or in terms of resource. So we can have a conversation about that if that would be useful. I'm sure Lisa will reach out. Thank you.
Thank you, Elspeth. And it's also worth mentioning on the cost piece that the fact that we are NHS, we're part of the NHS and we're working alongside the NHS means that we can get going a lot quicker on these kind of programs because we understand the environment, we understand the values, we subscribe to the people promise, etc. And also for many organisations, we don't charge VAT because we're all part of the same VAT vehicle. So often we can be a little bit more competitive in terms of our pricing, which is great. And Lisa, thank you very much for popping in your email address there. Mark, what I'll do as well, we've got a couple of case studies online, so I will dig those out and I'll pop those into the chat as well after this event. So thank you very much indeed. Right, the chat seems to have dried up slightly. Is there any other questions at all that anyone might have? Going once, going twice. Thank you very much for your comments, Katie. Very much appreciated. In which case, everybody, it's been an absolute joy to spend some time with you this afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us today. It's been fantastic. Elspeth, I don't know whether you've got any final comments at all.
No, nothing particular, but yeah, we do appreciate everybody's very, very time constrained. Everybody's very, very busy, and we really appreciate you spending some time with us. So hopefully getting 15 minutes back means that you can go and grab yourself a cup of coffee and a comfort break, etc., before you launch yourself into your next meeting. But thank you very, very much for joining us this afternoon, and very best with everything you're doing. And please do get in touch if there's anything we can help with. All right. So thank you to Maddie, thank you to David, and thank you for joining us. Goodbye.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, everyone.
Goodbye, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.